Hi everyone and welcome back. Today, we're diving into the tragic case of Antonia Barra, a holiday that turned into a nightmare. Alcohol, especially in large quantities, can be incredibly destructive. It damages both the body and mind, making a person highly vulnerable. When severely intoxicated, someone can easily become prey to robbers, fraudsters, rapists, and even murderers. This is particularly dangerous for women. The most disturbing part is that criminals often try to justify their actions by blaming their intoxication or accusing the victim, suggesting it was her fault. As a result, many victims of violence choose to remain silent, enduring the pain and coping on their own. Some manage to move on, but for others, the burden becomes too much to bear. The story of a young Chilean woman named Antonia Barra is a heartbreaking example of how silence and societal judgment can lead to tragedy. It also highlights how a man who devastated the lives of many young women went unpunished for too long. Antonia's case shocked the nation, sparked public outcry, and led to mass protests. It became a catalyst for changes in the flawed criminal justice system that previously allowed rapists to justify their actions. The widespread response helped ensure that a dangerous criminal was permanently removed from the streets, protecting other potential victims. Antonia Maria Barra was born on December 3, 1999, in Temuco, the administrative center of the district with the same name in Chile. She was the youngest of 5 children in a relatively affluent family, with her parents Alejandro and Marcela Barra. Antonia grew up with 2 older brothers, Sebastian and Ignacio, and 2 sisters, Catalina and Carla. Her closest and most trusted relationship was with Catalina, whom she considered her best friend and confidant. Her parents spared no expense on their children's education and holistic development. They engaged in sports, music, and other activities, and after graduating from school, they attended prestigious colleges. As the youngest, Antonia was especially loved and pampered by her parents. Despite this, she was a good student with dreams of working in the tourism industry and traveling the world. In 2015, 15-year-old Antonia met a guy named Martín Pradenas on social media. He lived nearby in the same city and was 8 years older than her. At the time, he was already divorced and had a child. Little is known about Martin's early life. He was born in February 1992 in Temuco and was the second of 3 children in the family of Ivan Pradenas and Paula Dare. When he was 20, a girl from his school became pregnant by him, and to avoid scandal and punishment, he married her. However, the marriage quickly fell apart after the child's birth. Based on their social media chats, Martin and Antonia knew each other personally and communicated between 2015 and 2017, maintaining a friendship. After Antonia graduated from school and went to university, she moved to another city, and their communication ceased. At university, Barra studied the travel industry, made new friends, and developed new hobbies. This is the beginning of Antonia's story, one that would soon take a tragic turn, highlighting the vulnerabilities faced by many and the need for systemic change. Not even thinking about Martin, Antonia, a university student, only returned to her hometown for vacations and holidays. Despite the distance, she stayed in constant contact with her parents, brothers, and sisters. At university, Antonia had a close friend named Consuela Herb, and the two became almost inseparable. She also started dating a student named Rodrigo Aguad, and their relationship lasted about a year. However, in September 2019, at the start of a new semester, they had a quarrel and decided to take a break from each other. Upset after the breakup, Antonia was looking for a way to unwind and distract herself from her heavy thoughts. With the Chilean national holiday approaching, a long weekend full of events was just around the corner. Antonia and her best friend Consuela decided to go to an electronic music festival in the picturesque town of Pucón. They traveled there in Consuela's car, along with 3 other students from their university. In Pucón, a summer house owned by close friends of the Barra family awaited them. Although the owners were out of town, they generously offered Antonia and her friend to stay there, providing instructions on where to find the spare key. Once they arrived, their companions went their separate ways, and the 2 friends settled into the spacious, cozy house, planning to enjoy the entire weekend there. On the evening of September 18th, while exploring the town, Antonia unexpectedly ran into Martin. They chatted and discovered that he was also in town for the festival with his friends, staying in a large rented house a few miles from the city center. They had a pleasant conversation and agreed to meet the next day at a party in one of the popular nightclubs. Antonia told her parents about her plans during a phone call, and her father sternly advised her to drink responsibly and behave prudently. Antonia laughed it off, assuring him that everything would be fine. The next day, the friends spent hours preparing for the party, choosing outfits, and doing their makeup before heading to the club. They drank a bottle of wine at the house before taking a taxi to the club. Once there, they ordered a bottle of champagne, which they drank together before hitting the dance floor. It was after midnight when Martin and his friends arrived at the club and quickly found Antonia. By then, both were already quite drunk, but they continued to drink and dance. Consuela tried to convince Antonia to stop drinking, but she didn't listen. At some point, Consuela lost sight of her friend and began searching for her, finding her half an hour later in another room with Martin. By then, Antonia was so intoxicated that she could barely stand. Consuela saw their classmate Benjamin Morales and asked him to help take Antonia home. However, Antonia resisted, insisting that the night was still young and she wasn't ready to leave. A few minutes later, Antonia began to feel sick, so her friends took her outside for some fresh air. After a while, she returned to the club. Towards morning, Consuela, feeling exhausted and wanting to sleep, approached Antonia again and suggested they go home together. Antonia, however, insisted on staying and continuing to have fun. Despite Consuela's efforts, Antonia was determined to keep partying. Left the club, abandoned all hope to convince the girl to go with her. She took a taxi, and when she got home she immediately went to bed. The party turned into a nightmare. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, Benjamin saw Martin leading Antonia out of the club, hugging and holding her, because the girl was swaying from side to side. According to the guy, she was disoriented, and Panus took advantage of this. They stood near the entrance for a while the girl was feeling sick, and they waited for her to feel a little better. Soon Martin's friends came up to them and offered to continue partying in their rented house. The company called to taxi, but Barra and Pinus walked by feet, as the girl was sick and she hardly understood what was going on around. Their walk was caught on surveillance cameras, and the recording showed that the guy was leading a drunk student who tried to free herself from his embrace. Along the way, they came across a 24-hour supermarket where Martin decided to buy beer. The store was deserted, and at some point he tried to kiss the girl, but she pushed him away and turned away. Obviously, she was uncomfortable with that, but she could not leave or resist in this situation. Prenus was stronger and led Antonia closer. To 8 o'clock in the morning, the couple reached the rented house, and the company in the living room noticed that the girl was clearly upset, but because of her heavy intoxication she could not express her protest, and Martin constantly hugged her and tried to kiss her. Since all the other friends had also drunk a lot, no one even tried to intervene. Soon the couple retired to one of the bedrooms where the man assaulted the girl, who was in a dazed condition. She did not understand what was happening, tried to resist and asked him to stop, but Martin did not listen to her. When it was over, he returned to the living room with his friends and continued to party, while Antonia remained lying in the bedroom. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, she called Benjamin and begged him to take her home, but the man didn't understand much of what she was saying. The girl's speech was slurred. She was constantly sobbing and also could not explain what was happening and where she was. Then Benjamin called Consuela and told her about the call, suggesting that Antonia was in trouble and needed help. The girl called her friend herself and with great difficulty found out where she was, and then went after her. On the doorstep she met Martin and asked what he had done, but the guy just smiled and said that it was consensual in one of the rooms. Consuela found her friend and was horrified by the state she was in. She was crying and begged to be taken away. Antonia took a shower as soon as they got home, despite Consuela's urgent advice not to wash away potential evidence and to call the police immediately. Antonia insisted on keeping the incident a secret, saying no one should ever find out. That afternoon, she called her parents, trying to mask her distress. The next morning, she and her friends returned to the student dormitory. Determined to forget the nightmare and return to normalcy, Antonia resumed her classes and interactions with friends. Only Consuela was aware of her true emotional state, but couldn't offer effective help. Antonia's depression worsened, and she avoided discussing the incident or filing a police report, fearing exposure. Rumors quickly spread, growing more detailed and scandalous. People whispered, pointed, and laughed, while one fellow student publicly questioned the rumor's truth. The final blow came when Antonia's ex-boyfriend Rodrigo called, recounting the rumors and telling her he never wanted to see her again. Despite her attempts to explain and defend herself, Rodrigo insulted her and ended the call, leaving Antonia devastated. On Saturday, October 12, 2019, Antonia visited her parents, but her sadness was evident despite her insistence that she was fine. That evening, she posted childhood pictures on social media with a melancholic caption. After family dinner, she went to her room on the 3rd floor, where she stayed for about an hour. Catalina, her close sister, checked in but was told Antonia wanted to sleep. Catalina complied, saying she loved her as she left. A couple of hours later, their mother Marcela went to call Antonia for dinner. When repeated knocks received no response, she entered the room and found Antonia unresponsive. Despite immediate efforts to resuscitate her and calling for an ambulance, Antonia could not be saved. She had taken a lethal dose of sleeping pills. The family's shock was profound. They were unaware of Antonia's emotional struggles. In their grief, her parents spoke with her friends and classmates, uncovering the spread of damaging rumors. Consuela provided crucial details, but the family sought further investigation. They hired a top private detective to reconstruct the crime and gather evidence. Alejandro, Antonia's father, took the case public, organizing a press conference to reveal the assault and call for justice. The detective managed to reconstruct the events of that night and gather testimonies from several witnesses, including Consuela, Benjamin, and other students. Despite this, the police deemed the evidence insufficient to arrest Martin. He claimed the encounter was consensual, though he acknowledged both were drunk, and since the victim hadn't reported it to the police, he remained free. Martin and his family soon countersued the Barra family for defamation, harassment, and the release of personal information. They held their own press conference, portraying themselves as victims of slander and defending Martin's honor. Martin's reputation was severely damaged as a result of the case. The Pradenas family accused the Barra family of making their home address, phone numbers, and social media profiles public, leading to daily insults and anonymous death threats against Martin and his family. They claimed that Martin's guilt was unproven and that everything had been consensual, with his family ready to defend him in court. Surprisingly, the police sided with the Pradenas family, leading Antonia's relatives to refrain from negative comments and further sharing personal data. This turn of events was a significant blow to the Barra family. Despite public support, they continued to pursue justice. As Antonia's case gained widespread attention, 8 more girls came forward to report harassment and violence by Martin, some as young as 13 at the time of the assaults. The increasing number of victims led to Martin's arrest in June 2020. He was charged with assaults occurring between 2011 and 2019 but was released on bail less than a month later due to his lawyer's efforts and the statute of limitations on many of the claims. Out of the 8 cases, only 2 were registered. Martin's release and the dismissal of many claims sparked public outrage, leading to protests demanding justice. In response, the prosecutor's office reviewed the case and sought to rearrest Martin, lifting the statute of limitations for the violent crimes. In February 2021, it was revealed that Martin had boasted about his crimes on social media and kept his victims' underwear as trophies, including items belonging to Antonia. By August 26, 2021, Martin was charged with 9 crimes against sexual integrity, with 3 victims being minors at the time. The Barra family urged the public to continue speaking out against violence. Court hearings for Martin began in June 2022. Despite presenting evidence such as surveillance footage showing Antonia's voluntary departure with Martin and challenging other victims' testimonies, Martin was found guilty in August 2022 of 8 sexual crimes and driving Antonia to a breakdown that led to her death. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Martin's legal team appealed, and on December 29, the Supreme Court ordered a new trial. By March 2023, the case was transferred to public defense, where Martin maintained his innocence, attributing the incident to alcohol. On July 7, 2023, he was found guilty again, but his sentence was reduced to 17 years, taking into account the time already served. Antonia's family was dissatisfied with the reduced sentence. In an official statement, her father emphasized that no punishment could restore their daughter and sister. In parallel, Antonia's family and other victims advocated for changes in the criminal code to better protect victims of sexual violence. This led to the creation of the Antonia Barra law, which aimed to abolish the statute of limitations for sexual offenses and increase penalties if a victim dies as a result of the assault. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more shocking and compelling stories ahead.